Titanic, a triumph and tragedy fascinates millions worldwide. This unsinkable ship hit an iceberg on her first trip and sank in the North Atlantic Ocean on April 14, 1912. Over 1,500 people died in this Titanic catastrophe, making its story legendary. Beyond James Cameron's idealized Titanic, the ship's past is full of intrigue, heroism, and horrific reality. These facts and truths will shock you. Number 10. Can you believe this massive ship was a true, coal-devouring beast? Every day, the Titanic used an astounding 825 tons of coal. That's enough coal to load a couple of big trucks. Consider how much energy is required to keep this massive ship sailing over the wide Atlantic Ocean. But it wasn't just the Titanic's size and strength that distinguished it. The level of detail was equally impressive. Consider this. The ship was illuminated by around 10,000 lamp bulbs. A small army of lights worked together to generate a brilliant illumination across the entire vessel. The Titanic must have been a sight to behold, with its sparkling lights generating an atmosphere of elegance and sophistication that enthralled all who boarded. Even in comparison to today's mechanical wonders, the Titanic remains a tribute to human creativity, precise design, and unprecedented luxury. It's little surprise that we're still captivated by the fabled tale of this majestic ship and its terrible yet awe-inspiring tragedy over a century later. Number 9. Only 23 ladies bravely wore their uniforms and began on a trip that would test their resilience and challenge cultural standards. These courageous women were a small but substantial minority in a male-dominated workplace. While the majority of the women worked in maid services, ministering to the needs of the affluent first-class guests, the men took on more participatory responsibilities aboard the ship. It's difficult to envision the halls of the ship without the vivid presence of women in diverse roles, navigating their own destinies amidst the churning tides of advancement. While the Titanic's representation of working women was limited, their presence paved the way for future generations of women who would challenge the existing quo and transform the workforce. Their combined efforts would eventually lead society to a more inclusive and equitable future. Number 8. Keep your stamps handy, because we're about to reveal a little-known story about the Titanic's early days. Prepare yourself for a surprise. The Titanic was not only a luxury liner, but it also served as a mail ship. This magnificent ship was also known as the Royal Mail Ship. The Titanic, as a Royal Mail ship, was responsible for transporting mail for the British Postal Service. It was a massive ship, magnificently cruising across the huge ocean with over 3,000 sacks of mail. Millions of individual pieces of mail, ranging from passionate letters to colourful postcards and elegantly wrapped presents, were included within those sacks. These messages of love, news, and critical communications were sent to countries around the world, including the United States and Canada. Now comes the dark part of the story. When disaster struck, and the Titanic fell beneath the seas on April 15, 1912, the majority of the mail perished along with the ship. The treasured letters, eagerly awaited presents, and poignant correspondences were lost at sea, forever separated from their intended recipients. Number 7. According to historical accounts, 12 beautiful dogs joined their owners on the perilous journey. These canine friends varied from dainty Pomeranians to stately Pekingese, and their wagging tails made the passengers happy as they set sail across the huge ocean. However, as the Titanic collided with the iceberg and panic erupted, the lives of these devoted companions were jeopardized. Most of the dogs were abandoned in the first-class kennel, their hearts heavy and paws wet, unable to flee the rising floods that swamped the ship. Their despairing barks mingled with the pleas of people seeking sanctuary, and they sadly perished to the cruel depths. Despite the darkness, a ray of hope appeared. 3 furry survivors beat the odds and made it to safety. 2 courageous Pomeranians and a fearless Pekingese overcame the difficulties that befell their comrades, and their small paws led them to a lucky escape from the sinking ship. With their damp fur and shaking tails, these hardy pups became icons of hope and resilience in the aftermath of the calamity. Number 6. The water around the sinking ship was bone-chillingly cold, hovering around 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Humans could only last a few minutes at such severe temperatures before hypothermia cruelly gripped their bodies. The frigid waters turned into a perilous grave for anyone unfortunate enough to be caught in its fatal embrace. Fear and worry grabbed their hearts as they considered returning to help others in need in the sea. However, in the middle of the chaos, a light of valor emerged in the form of Lifeboat 14, captained by the valiant 5th Officer Harold Lowe. Officer Lowe made the audacious decision to return to the freezing waters after patiently waiting for a moment of calm. Lifeboat 14 set out on a rescue operation, hoping to save as many lives as possible from the perilous waters. Although Lifeboat 14 was able to rescue a few people from the icy depths, the sad reality was that many had already died from the bone-chilling cold. Despite their heroic efforts, the number of individuals rescued from the water was regrettably low. In the end, the majority of individuals who fled the cold abyss were the lucky ones who found themselves aboard a lifeboat in the frenetic rush for survival. Number 5. The Titanic was dogged by disaster even before it set sail on its first voyage. The ship was built in Belfast's Harland and Wolff shipyard over a hard 26-month period, and it suffered a series of mishaps that seemed to portend the calamity that awaited it. There were 28 catastrophic accidents and 218 minor incidents during its construction. 8 workers were killed, which was actually fewer than feared given the hazardous conditions during the construction phase. The majority of these tragic deaths were caused by falls, either from the ship itself or from the surrounding scaffolding. One terrifying tragedy occurred even on the day of the Titanic's ceremonial launch. A 43-year-old shipwright called James Dobbin died as 10,000 spectators held their breath as the massive vessel plummeted into the River Lagan. Dobbin was crushed while removing the timber stays that had kept the ship upright. This horrible twist of fate set the stage for the Titanic's doomed voyage. One has to wonder if poor Dobbin could have prevented the ship from leaving on its first and final fatal voyage. These early Titanic casualties serve as a somber reminder of the risks and sacrifices involved in bringing such a majestic ship to reality. They also provide insight into the terrible forebodings that seem to encircle the ship, foreshadowing its disastrous fate in the frigid seas of the North Atlantic. Number 4. This magnificent ship was an astonishing 269.1 meters in length. That's the length of 2.5 football fields laid end to end. The crew members had quite an adventure navigating their way around this massive yacht. It took them nearly 2 weeks to obtain a decent feel for all the ship's nooks and crannies. It took more than 14 days of exploration just to figure out where everything was. Can you imagine the Titanic's sheer size? Consider yourself standing at the bow, looking up at the towering structure that stretches for the sky. It's like a floating metropolis, complete with its own world of wonders and miracles. The Titanic was a universe unto itself, from the magnificent dining halls to the exquisite cabins and the humming engine rooms poised to set sail on the adventure of a lifetime. But beyond the majesty and awe, there is a tragic and heartbreaking story. The Titanic will forever be associated with failed human goals, reminding us that even the mightiest of constructs can be humbled by natural forces. Number 3. Consider 10 little automobiles suspended on a big chain. The same was true for this anchor. Moving this massive anchor was no easy task. In terms of strength, it took not 1, not 2, but 20 strong and muscular horses to complete the task. To lift that massive lump of metal, a swarm of tough guys had to band together and flex their muscles. These are the kinds of enthralling elements that add to the Titanic's extraordinary story. It's a monument to human creativity and the enormity of the problems that had to be conquered in order to produce such a masterpiece. Let us celebrate the Titanic's magnificent main anchor, which was a true heavyweight champion of the seas. Number 2. Some people believe that a full moon played a role in the Titanic's sinking. It's an enticing thought, but let's be clear, the full moon alone did not bring down this massive ship. There's more to the story than meets the eye. That massive iceberg was the main culprit here. The ship was traveling at high speeds, and construction problems, as well as a lack of lifeboats, didn't help matters. This tragic calamity was caused by a confluence of causes. Some researchers believe that the phenomena of a supermoon on January 4th, 1912, played a minor role in the catastrophe. The moon, you see, comes extremely close to Earth during a supermoon and aligns with the sun and our planet. This cosmic dance could have created higher tides, which could have caused more icebergs to float into the Titanic's path. The idea of cosmic forces acting against the powerful Titanic adds intrigue to the story. However, we can't simply point a finger at the full moon and blame it for everything. Number 1. Morgan Robertson wrote The Wreck of the Titan, or Futility, in 1898. What's more, this account bears an uncanny resemblance to the actual sinking of the RMS Titanic. The novella follows the fate of the Titan, a British ocean liner that sinks in the frigid waters of the North Atlantic after striking with an iceberg. Is this anything you've heard before? The parallels between the mythical Titan and the real Titanic, which sank 14 years later, are startling. People were taken aback by the strange links. How might such parallels exist? Some questioned Morgan Robertson's psychic or supernatural powers. Scholars, on the other hand, offer a different explanation. They feel that Robertson's vivid descriptions were the result of his extensive knowledge of the shipping industry rather than any supernatural vision. Both ships were lost in the North Atlantic after colliding with an iceberg in April. Neither ship had enough lifeboats to carry all of the passengers. Both the Titan and the Titanic would have survived a direct crash with the iceberg, but the contact was disastrous. Even the ship's proportions, speeds, and life-saving equipment are strikingly identical. It's a fantastic story that blurs the lines between fiction and truth.